little Gasper talk here. We got a Celtics thought. We've got some Super Bowl thoughts. Let's start with the Celtics, Chris. Where do you stand with them on the at this hour?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really disconcerting when you look at the effort or lack thereof that they had against the Mavericks, and this is the continuance of this stretch. And people looked at it, I think, and said, okay, they came out and played really well against Cleveland, but then you go back home. Now you've lost 10 games at home this season, and I thought you heard a little bit from Missoula, depending on how you want to dissect that sound. But when Washburn sort of asking him about Cleveland and how that was a complete game, and he says, well, no, that wasn't a complete game. I think he's finally getting to a point where he's publicly acknowledging that these guys are not showing attention to detail, focus, execution, or consistency. They're good enough probably to just flip the switch. But I feel like when you build these habits and it extends, and look, Porzingis has said this too, if we don't pull out of this, we'll pick up some bad habits. You're picking up some really bad habits here. And you got away with it against Philly, where you're down 26 and you're able to come back. Against the Mavericks, you couldn't come back down 26. Is there any reason on earth that this Celtics team should ever be down 26 to that Philly team without Embiid and George, and to the Mavericks team at home last night? That they should ever be down by that much?
Of course not.
Unless you're not focused, you're not executing, you're not trying. So I'm concerned with this. I think Joe has to get to a point where he realizes this is a different type of season, right? And he still has to evolve, and there's still a maturation process for him as a coach. And just because what he did last year worked for a championship, and just because they brought back their top, whatever it was, 10 guys, it's not the same situation and the same team, and it requires different messaging and different coaching.
Yeah, the concern to me just is that because last year was relatively easy, relatively, they now think it's easy. And it's not. You still have to show up, and there's a whole different level of competition. And so I think he's also sticking it to Washburn a little bit. Like Washburn said, you played a complete game. No, he didn't. I feel like he's sort
There's
of
an element of that, I'm sure.
But I also think that, look, if he's getting agitated, he should be getting agitated, Chris.
And maybe it's a fan way to look at it. It's like, so last night, it's a finals rematch. The Lakers there a few weeks ago with Philly. How do you not get up for certain teams that you're playing, I
agree. And you know what the question Washburn should have asked, to go back at him? Joe, you still having fun with this part? Was this fun tonight, Joe? Did you have fun? Yeah. This is the fun part. This is why you get into the business, right, of coaching in the NBA, so that you can get booed by your own fans and get down 27 to a makeshift Mavericks team. This is the fun part, right? So are we having fun? Because it doesn't look like he's having fun.
Super Bowl 59, what's the key to the game, Chris?
It starts on the offensive line for the Eagles and whether they can run the football or not. There are some amazing stats out there when it comes to Kansas City and stopping the run. They haven't allowed.
Listen to this mess.
They have not allowed a 100-yard rusher in 18 consecutive games now this season. And that the first game was Baltimore. It wasn't even a running back. It was Lamar Jackson. But since Steve Spagnuolo took over in 2019 as the defensive coordinator in Kansas City, they played 18 postseason games, have not allowed a 100-yard rusher.
Wow.
No, I did hear some of this morning, too.
Now, when you look at it, again, but what did Buffalo do best, and what should they have done more of in that game?
Run James Cook.
So I think that's the game. Are the Chiefs susceptible against the run in a way that maybe hasn't been tested enough, or people don't get to test it because they're worried about Mahomes? And will the Eagles stick with it? I see this game similar to Super Bowl 52, where we looked at it, that godforsaken week in Minnesota. But it was the worst. But you looked at it and you said, there's no way this team can beat the Patriots because they have the coach and they have the quarterback, and those guys are legends. But that game was won up front. I thought if you were doing Super Bowl MVP, if I had to vote, I collectively would have voted for the Eagles' offensive line. They owned that game. They dominated that game. That's where this game, and it's not sexy. I sound like Bedard here, but that's where the game's going to be won. That's where it's going to be decided up front. Can the Eagles' offensive line impose their will and get Saquon going and also get Hurts going, who in the last Super Bowl hurt Kansas City with his legs?
Would you say it's the same thing on the other side? The Philly defensive line getting to Mahomes like the Buccaneers did a couple of years ago? Like, that's the only time. It's the only time Patrick Mahomes has looked mortal. He's lost postseason games, but that's like the one time someone got him.
Yeah.
And it started up front.
I also think, I agree, it does start up front in terms of the ability to speed him up and pressure him. But you look at Vic Fangio and that Eagles defense, they were number one in the league in pass defense this year. And in talking to some of the guys over on that team and talking to some of the Philly guys this week, they just feel like that secondary communicates really well. It's not an overly complicated scheme. It is a lot of zone. that they use, and I think he'll throw some other stuff in there just to switch it up. But the secondary play has improved so much. You have to marry that up. You have to put pressure on Mahomes with guys like Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, and we'll see Brandon Graham probably play in this one. And then also on the back end, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean as the corners, being able to make those windows really tight and making sure you communicate.
Is Philly the better team?
Philly's a better team. Philly is a better team with the better roster, I think, top to bottom. I mean, even you're just looking at it and you're saying, okay, if you are looking at it from Spagnuolo's view, and we talked about it, you want to make sure Saquon Barkley doesn't beat you. You want to make Hurts beat you. But who's Hurts throwing to? The two best receivers in this game, maybe I like Kelsey, but you can make an argument, depending on how you feel about Goddard, that like the three best pass catchers in this game all belong to Philadelphia. And so it's a situation where can Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, Fangio, can those guys get the most out of what's around them? Because it's better than what's around Mahomes and Andy Reid, and be able to take advantage of that. Or are we just at the point, I've said this, not to contradict myself, but many times on this show, it's a quarterback league. And I think this is sort of the ultimate test, the ultimate litmus test of, is it just about the quarterback? Or if you build it correctly and you do pretty much everything right outside of a super elite quarterback, he's good. At the end of the day, can you win? Can you win a championship? Can you overcome that team that has the quarterback and the coach?
The Rams did it a couple years ago, so, I mean, it would be another example, but, I mean, it has happened. It does happen.
Philly's tougher to defend. Philly's got more weapons. So they got a better running game. They got more pass catchers. The quarterback is what they don't have compared to Kansas City. I don't think Hurts sucks. He's pretty good, but he's not Mahomes. So I'm interested, Chris, in, how does Kansas City defend Philadelphia? In other words, do you double A.J. Brown and do you put McDuffie then on Devontae Smith? Or, how do you do that? Because I don't think McDuffie can cover A.J. Brown. I think strength-wise it's a bad matchup.
Yeah.
So, but to me, just out of curiosity, how would you do that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think if you're them, just on the other side, you have to sell out. You have to stop the run. You can't let Saquon Barkley... And you can't let him get the outside runs. I saw this stat that in the playoffs, on outside runs, so stuff like outside the tackles, when they can get him, he's averaging 9.3 yards per carry. 9.3 yards per carry on outside runs. So I think what's going to hurt Kansas City here is, on the one hand, it's like, okay, you want to make Hurts beat you, and you probably want to put some pressure on him, but you can't pin your ears back. And I don't know if you can come with all these blitzes if you're Spags, because your guys have to stay in their lanes and can't lose any contain on Barkley or on Hurts, because these could be huge gains in the run game for the Eagles. So can the Eagles get Kansas City back on their heels a little bit? I think that's the key. And then the other thing, your point about A.J. Brown and the physicality, I think the other key thing for Kansas City overall will be, and it sounds simplistic, but tackling. Guys are going to have opportunities to get Saquon Barkley on the ground, Hurts on the ground in space, A.J. Brown on the ground in space. Can they do it? Because if they don't, then now all of a sudden Philadelphia is in 3rd and 2, which we all know is really 2 downs in the tush push, and they're keeping the ball away from Mahomes. I think to some degree the best defense in this game for the Eagles could be their offense, particularly if they can run the ball, kill the clock, get in 3rd and 4th and short, and keep Mahomes off the field.
Chris, thanks for coming by.
Yeah, this was good.
Have a good time in New Orleans?
I'm having a fun time. I got a couple more days to go. I know you guys are out of here. So
are you through the game?
I am not. I'm actually not. I'm not credentialed for the game, but I'll be leaving.
You're just here to go to fancy parties.
Game. That's right. At this point, I am. At Friday at 5 o'clock Eastern time. That's right. I'm just here to go to fancy parties.
How many outfit options do you bring yourself? 3 per night? So
this is pretty casual.
How many suitcases?
I packed a carry-on. I'll have you know, Murray.
Wow.
I don't believe
it's all in the carry-on. I'll have you know that.
Okay, but
because all that silk is very thin.
Okay, but listen, it's not like you're here 5 nights. You go out 5 nights, so you bring 5 outfits. No, you bring 10. So you can lay them out and try them on, and you got to give yourself this is my wife.
Yeah.
So how many options do you give yourself a night?
That's a good question. I mean, I think some of this stuff is versatile, and also I did my research before I came here. I knew there was a Saks Fifth Avenue that's walking distance here. So if I have to go and pull something, grab something for the bullpen, I know I can do it.
I'm more interested in the materials. What materials are out because of the humidity here? Cashmere is a no-no.
Yeah, cashmere. You want like cotton stuff. Yeah, you definitely want to let it breathable.
Yeah.
I'm not a linen guy.
Me neither. I hate linen.
I don't like linen.
I was going to rip you.
And it wrinkles. It just wrinkles. I don't like wrinkles. It wrinkles so easily.
Linen.
Yeah.
Did you bring out the steamer and the iron in the hotel room?
Oh yeah. I've used it several times already. Yeah, absolutely.
I've worn the same jeans 3 days in a row.
I'll take. Just quickly. I love the iron in the hotel because it irons, but it's also a vertical steamer, which is fantastic. It's as good as it gets.
How many
versatile.
shoes? How many shoes?
I didn't bring that many. That's the hard part with the carry-on.
Right, exactly. The shoes.
I only have like 3 pairs of shoes.
Told you. That's a lot.
God, that is.
That's not a lot.
That's not a lot at all. Girls, I mean, the guy's got to have some options.
You got to have.
I bring 2. I bring a pair of shoes.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the fashionista here.
I was here all
It's
week.
hard. The carry-on's really limiting. That was the toughest decision I had to make this week.
Shoes.
Was it going to be a carry-on or was I going to check? And I was like, no, I want a carry-on. So that really limits the outfit choices. So
Well, either way, I'm sure you persevered.
If you like that clip, check out more videos from Felger and Mazz here. For more Celtics analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.